when you join the Community Pay It Forward family. Your business can be seen because people know your business will offer hope to organizations like Todd Lingle of CARES Foundation. CARES Foundation is a proud mission partner of Community Pay It Forward. CARES Foundation is dedicated to educating young drivers of the dangers of impaired and distracted driving. Every sale through Community Pay It Forward helps support incredible organizations like the CARES Foundation.
Community Pay It Forward isn't just another rewards program. It's a movement built on compassion and connection. We link everyday businesses, nonprofits, and neighbors so simple actions like buying lunch, getting your car fixed, or hiring a service can create lasting impact. When you choose one of our giving partners, part of your purchase goes directly to families, veterans, children, or community missions in need. It doesn't cost you a dime more. It just means your purchases matter. Because here, every transaction tells a story. And our belief is simple. If you're not helping someone, you're hurting everyone. Because at Community Pay It Forward, no one needs to go it alone when we all come together.
What's our sales potential? We're all selling a product, service, or idea to someone. How would we see our life when we maximize our performance and profit? When we connect with our potential that we were designed into us? It allows us to experience not only our work, but also our relationships at an enjoyable level. The workshop and assessment give us a chance to get reacquainted with who we were designed to be by the universe or God or whatever our belief system. The 3-hour workshop is separated into 3 days so our brain can absorb the new motivation and behavior change. J.W. Wilson, my mentor and author of Cracking the Learning Code, was not only known as a world leader in this science, he built $21 million businesses and taught Mayo Clinic's doctors to connect with their patients, among many other things. This is Les Simpson of Enhanced Team Performance. Below in the details is a flyer of the workshop, also with white paper and testimonial of the assessment. Included is a video link to my assessment. It shows who we are in all 6 areas of our life and was created in the 80s and was proprietary to the Fortune 500 for 30 years. Now I'm bringing it to companies and individuals that want to maximize their work and relationships. Get back with my team leader that sent you this video to join their workshop.
Born into a real fight wasn't right. Where can she dream here? Took a hold of her life, left at night, stepping out of her fear. Bring me home, out alone.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Community Impact. My name is Zach Clayton, President and Founder, Community Pay It Forward, the Come Together Compass, and the Pact podcasting channels.
Hope everyone's doing well today. Just a little bit of a community warning. I guess there's like a cold going around that, feels like it's going to suck. Sucks for a lot of people. I know it took my parents down pretty hard. Myself and my wife, we ended up catching it. So far, we're okay. But that, who knows? Who knows what's going on? So, I know the last couple days I was walking around here bragging because, ha ha ha, finally I'm the one who, didn't catch it first. Ha ha ha. Well, then, after going to doctor's offices and ERs and urgent cares and all this other stuff, open mouth, insert giant ass foot. So, but, do want to let everyone know there has been a change in community pay it forward, and the change is pretty big. But it's not it's not a cataclysmic change. Let's just put it that way. But we have a new phone number, and I can't even find the dash. So I'm trying to type it in as I'm talking to you, which is, wonderful radio, video, or whatever we're going to call this. So everything else is still the exact same, but the phone number is different. And there we go. 970-692-1151. 970-692-1151. The one thing that hasn't changed, though, is please give me a call, or please give me a text before you call. It's so much easier for me to answer, or to get to a quiet place so I can hear you. If I'm like in a grocery store or something, it's harder for me to understand what you're saying. I have to stand still in a quiet place, and believe it or not, I have to plug my deaf ear. I don't know why I do it, but I have to. And it's just, there's so much going on, and it's so distracting. So please give me a text so we can set up a time to have our phone call. But the new number is 970-692-1151. Today we're taking the time to talk about something that's not just important, but it's essential for the safety and well-being, emotional stability of the people around us. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's very important that we get the words out to find ways to support everyone. Now, I enjoy there's just no other way to say it, but one of my favorite days of the year is the 22-hour podcast. But this is something that we can't do just one day a year and forget about. This is something that we need to make sure we're talking about all the time. And today on this show, it fits in perfectly because we're bringing back in our dearest new partner, Aviva Chansky-Gutman, talking about active listening. And today she has two wonderful guests that longtime watchers, listeners, whatever, you're going to recognize them both. One is our host for the show 2 weeks from tonight, and that is the wonderful Lynn Sibulski from Lynn's Day. She's going to be on. She has been a student, if you will, of Aviva's for a while. And then the other one is the wonderful Mr. Z. He is also joining us for this podcast. And I do just want to give you a warning. This is not the way the lessons go, okay? We're trying to record in 1 hour what Aviva takes and does in multiple sessions. So it's easier for you to sit down with her one-on-one and understand everything that's going on. I think our guest did a fantastic job. I think that Aviva did a fantastic job of doing what they did, but it was under very difficult circumstances. So please do understand that. But yes, today we are talking about active listening and why it's one of the most important and effective ways to support someone who's experiencing anxiety, overwhelm, most importantly, dark thoughts. It's not a small topic. This is not a soft skill. This is a life skill. And in many cases, it can be a life-saving skill. That's just not, I'm not just putting that out there to make it sound more important than what it is, because I can't put enough emphasis on how important it is. Look, when someone is struggling with anxious or struggling with dark thoughts, their mind becomes a literal storm. And there's not a single one of us that at some point in time, whether it be our younger years or yesterday, that has gone through a dark time. And it's not just mental, it's also physical. Their nervous system is overwhelmed. Their thoughts race. Their breathing changes. Their sense of safety collapses. And in those moments, they do need someone to fix them. I'm sorry. They do not need someone to fix them. They do not need someone to lecture them. That is one of the worst things that you can do, is try to lecture someone. This is something that our dear friend Maria Belenik says all the time when it comes to loss. You know, you can't have somebody rush you. And nobody needs someone to tell them to calm down. They need someone who can listen. Listen in a way that helps their body and mind settle. And that's what active listening does. Active listening is the practice of giving someone your full attention without judgment, without interruption, and without trying to solve their problem before you understand their experience. And I'd like to go further. There's a lot of times that you don't have to give any advice. Just sit down, shut up, and pay attention. I've noticed when I go to a counselor every once in a while, I say the things out loud, and I realize the ridiculous situation that I'm in on my own. He or she doesn't have to say anything. I realize that if I'm sitting there and I can say it out loud, and I can put it in my own face, I know what the problem is. And when you say it out loud, sometimes the situation and the healing process is very clear. Now, yeah, there are some times they're going to want to hear something from you. You've got to judge the room. You've got to judge the person. You've got to, just make sure that you are doing what's best for them. Active listening is not a point of you trying to show someone how smart you are. So once again, active listening is listening without interruption and without trying to solve their problem before you understand their experience. You have to understand their experience. It's listening with your ears, your eyes, your posture, and your presence. These things here. Nothing shows disinterest more than these things here. It's listening to understand, not listening to respond. And here's why it matters so much. When someone is anxious or spiraling into dark thoughts, their brain is operating in survival mode. The part of their brain responsible for logic and problem solving goes offline. Their emotional center becomes overactive. Their body prepares for danger even when the danger is internal. Even when the danger is not as big as they have made it. And we've all been guilty of that too. We overreact to a situation. In that moment, the person cannot think clearly. They cannot reason. They cannot access coping skills. They cannot hear advice. But they can hear you if you're listening with intention. Active listening helps regulate the nervous system. When someone feels heard, their breathing slows down. Their heart rate begins to settle. Their brain shifts out of panic mode. They begin to feel safe enough to think again. Safety is the foundation of healing, and listening is one of the fastest ways to create that safety. This is why therapists, crisis workers, and trauma-informed professionals rely on active listening as a first step in every conversation. And it's exactly why our giving partner of the day, Aviva Chansky-Gutman, teaches these skills at her profession. Look, Aviva is a licensed social worker. She's a certified imago relationship therapist and an expert in nervous system regulation. She teaches people how to calm emotional overwhelm and how to reconnect with their bodies and how to communicate in ways that reduce conflict and increase connection. Her work is grounded in the belief that people heal when they feel seen, heard, and understood. And active listening is at the heart of all of that. So during this next episode that you're going to watch, you're going to go through the breakdown of, some of the core components of active listening. And so real quick, we're just going to go through those. Okay, so these are the core components and why each of them matters so much when someone is struggling. The first component is presence. Being fully present means putting down distractions, making eye contact if appropriate, and showing your body language that you are here and you're not going anywhere. Presence communicates safety. It tells the person, you matter enough for me to stop what I am doing to be here with you. The second component is validation. Validation does not mean agreeing with everything the person says. It means acknowledging their feelings as real and understandable. When someone says, I feel like everything is falling apart, validation sounds like, that sounds incredibly heavy. I'm here with you. Please tell me about what is bothering you. Look, shame is one of the biggest drivers of dark thoughts. When shame decreases, hope increases. Again, feeling safe. The third component is reflective listening. This means repeating back the essence of what the person said so they know you truly heard them. It sounds weird, And at times it may even sound like you're mocking them. But if you say it to a point where you're proving to them, actually what I'm hearing is this. Did I get that right? They know you're paying attention. It might sound like you're feeling overwhelmed and scared, and you don't know what to do next. Reflection helps the person feel understood. And it also helps them organize their own thoughts. The fourth component is non-judgment. When someone is anxious or having dark thoughts, they're already judging themselves harshly. They don't need more judgment from the outside. Safe place. Safety. Safe, safe, safe. They need safety from you. They felt safe enough to come to you, make them feel safe enough to stay with you. They need compassion. They need a space to express what they're feeling without fear of being dismissed or criticized. The fifth component is gentle curiosity. This is not an interrogation. This is not pushing. This is simple asking open-ended questions that help the person explore their feelings of safety. Questions like, what's the hardest part of this right now for you? What do you need in this moment? Curiosity shows that you care enough to understand their experience more deeply. Then there's silence. Silence is powerful. Silence gives the person space to breathe, to think, and to feel without pressure. Now, I know what everyone's saying. I know what everyone's thinking right now. Our motto is never shut up, silence never hurt anyone. We're not talking about inactive listening. If you're listening to someone, silence needs to happen. But what we're talking about with never shut up is the person who's talking needs to make sure they are expressing everything in the moment, and they're really putting it out there. So, in this moment, silence does help people. Silence communicates patience, it communicates respect, and it communicates you're not rushing them. And then, supportive statements. These are simple grounding phrases that help a person feel less alone. Statements like, I am here with you. You're not alone. We'll get through this together. These are statements. These statements do not fix a problem, but they stabilize the moment. Look, when you combine all of these components, you create a space where someone can begin to calm their nerves, their nervous system, slow down their thoughts, and reconnect with their sense of safety. Once they feel safe, they can begin to think more clearly. They can begin to access coping skills. They can begin to consider next steps, and they can begin to feel hope again. Active listening is not therapy. It's not a replacement for professional help, but it is one of the more powerful tools we have as human beings to support each other in moments of fear, anxiety, or emotional darkness. And again, this is exactly why we highlight the work of Aviva. Her entire practice is built on helping people feel safe. Safe enough to heal. She teaches people how to regulate their nervous systems, how to communicate with compassion, and how to build relationships that support emotional well-being. Look, if you want to learn more about her work, you can visit her by scanning the QR code above. You will see this QR code throughout this video. It is in the box right beside Aviva. You're also going to see QR codes for Z and Lynn if you want to get a hold of them. So, but as we're winding down, I do want to once again remind you of the new number, 970-692-1151, 970-692-1151. Please make a note of this. Please change it in your phones to get a hold of me. Please text me before you call. And now, before I close out this section of this, I do want to introduce something special. The Aviva show this week is with Lynn Sibulski and Mr. Z. This show brings together live experience, professional insights, and real conversations about healing, connection, and emotional resilience. So we're bringing together Lynn's Day with the web designer who designs websites for other designers. Who teaches people what they need to know. So I want to thank you for joining us, and I'm excited to begin this show. Once again, consider getting a hold of Aviva through her QR code. And yes, Aviva is a community pay it forward giving partner. She is a lovely person, and I love having her involved. So we're going to get started with Aviva in just one moment. Please, if you have any questions, get a hold of me, 970-692-1151, 970-692-1151, or Zach, Z-A-K, at communitypayitforward.us, Zach, Z-A-K, at communitypayitforward.us. Let's get this show started. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Help us spread the word of healing and share the word of people doing great things to support their communities.
Hey friends, I've been thinking, we all have our strengths, right? There are things I'm great at and things I'm definitely not great at. I can talk to anyone, anywhere, but ask me to add something to a website or an app. Yeah, that's where things get a little messy. Oops, I love speaking, I love sharing stories. But social media, all those hashtags, algorithms, trends, that's a jungle I still haven't mapped out. Now, coming up with ideas that bring people together, that's my sweet spot. But bookkeeping, let's just say numbers, and I have agreed to stay in separate corners. And you know what? That's okay, because someone out there is good at those things. And when we work together, that's when the magic happens. Community Pay It Forward has never been about one person. It's a program built by many to support even more. Every single one of us brings something special to the table. We all have talents that make us strong on our own. But imagine how powerful we become when we combine them. That's the heart of Community Pay It Forward. Your skills, my skills, our hearts, working side by side to make a real difference. So tell me, what are you good at? Let's discover it together. Visit communitypayitforward.us and join the movement.
Hey everybody, little late, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because this is the coolest thing about this. We have two of our regulars on right now, so you're going to get them twice this month, which is very special. We've got the host of our show today, Aviva. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Zach. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Aviva, before we get to our guest, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh, where to start? Okay, so I am a social worker by profession. I am practicing at this point in time energy psychology and relationship therapy as my main two areas of practice. And today I'll be using some of the demonstration about active listening, which is part of the energy realm about relationships and how we can move forward and get more effective communication with people we interact with all the time. But I am also have a past history of medical social work and a lot of caregiver support, which is very pertinent to the population you help and work with. And so this is the second episode of, hopefully, I think we have 3 in a row that we'll be doing to talk about ways that we can take care of ourselves, regulate our nervous systems easily and with a lot of self-care methods. And so I'm here today to share that.
Yeah, this is the second, and then you're going to be back here on I believe it's the 24th, 27th. We're going to be talking to you again. So, but I'm glad to see you back, and I'm excited to get this one going. This is a play along episode, so please, whatever you're doing right now, kind of put it down and check out how to active listen. It's very important for every aspect of life, and especially right now in the month of May, which is mental health awareness. This is a perfect time how to teach yourself how to listen to someone and make sure you're hearing their whole story. Uh, Aviva, this is more about listening and not talking, right?
Well, it's about listening fully because in our culture, when we talk about listening, people aren't often listening because they haven't learned how to do that. They're hearing, meaning they're hearing the noise of the other person speaking, and they're often just waiting for the sound to end. And it's not intentional that they're just being that way about it. Their brain is going through a series of steps like, as soon as I stop hearing that other person speak, I better start speaking or come up with what I'm supposed to come up with, or do some one-upmanship, which happens too in conversations. We're basically going to talk about unlearning a lot of socialization about not listening well. So it's not about being silent, it's about fully concentrating on what the person is saying so that you take it in completely for what they're intending and trying to convey to you. And then showing them that it's been received that way is very important for them as someone sending you information, and also for the aspect of them feeling understood and you understanding what they need and want. So it's a reciprocal experience, and it is related to energy psychology because it's about what's between people in their relationships, any relationships. It can be the barista at the coffee shop, it can be your doctor, it can be your partner in life, and it's all very effective to have active listening as a skill set that becomes more natural over time.
I love the way that you put that we're just listening for the sound. I do think that I know that that was something that I did a lot of before, and I still find myself guilty of at times. That you're just listening for that momentary pause, and you can tell when that is a lot of times because the person will start to speak, and maybe the speaker at the time was just taking a
A breath.
right, a breath or a momentary pause, a dramatic pause or something like that, and so it gets missed in there. So two of your star pupils are here with us, and I think it's great because they're also stars in my life in the program. So first we have it's it's pre Lynn's Day. We have Lynn Sibulski with us. How are you doing, Lynn?
So far, so good. Thank
And
you.
we've also been joined by who I believe is the master of active listening. I truly believe he is the master of active listening, and that's Mr. Z. How you doing, brother?
I am feeling masterful, the good Z, and thank you so much for the kind words. And I'm going to try to hold you up to that title. And I couldn't have learned without great people like yourself, Zach, Aviva, and Lynn, and feeling great. Thank you, Zach.
Well, Before we get started, and I appreciate that, Z. Before we get started, Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then, Mr. Z, we're going to ask a little bit about you, and then we'll get started on this fun activity.
So, for those who don't know, I am part of the Community Pay It Forward group of businesses. My name is Lynn Sibulski, and I am a professional tarot reader in New York City. My business is footnotestarot.com, and so I do tarot readings. I am also a level 2 Usui Reiki practitioner. I read crystals and tea and all sorts of things, so very much into the intuitive and the energy healing, and big fan of healing in general.
You are also getting into and studying mediumship.
That is correct, and it is very strongly linked to being able to kind of raise your vibration in general. I'm finding.
One of the things that one of the things that I've learned being married to a medium is that we all have that ability. It's just how we really choose to use it and how strong it is in us, because a lot of us call it intuition, but there's more to it than that, isn't there?
There is, and I think in the same way that we're listening to Aviva today, and she's going to be demonstrate things like active listening, when you're trying to tap into your intuition, there aren't really, it's not a clear-cut path. How do you learn to do that? Who do you go to? Who is trustworthy? What makes sense as an approach? Um, in my experience, meditation is just the number one way to calm your mind and get it into a space that allows connection with whatever is there. And I believe we were discussing this earlier, and surely we'll discuss it again, gratitude as a way of focusing on the good things in your life and elevating your vibration so that whatever is out there can connect more easily.
Wonderful. Mr. Z, tell us a little bit about Z-World Webs and Z-World Cares, please.
Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate the kind words, and I have to agree with Lynn. I'm truly grateful to be a part of this community as well as the Community Pay It Forward program. And start off with Z-World Webs and Z-World Cares. Hello, world. My name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer, and I am also a consultant from Z-World Webs. And for Z-World Cares, thank you, Zach, for allowing me to share that. I run a website called Z-World Cares, which empowers nonprofits to accept donations, accept volunteers, find sponsors, and in some cases, find board members for their nonprofit organizations. So if you are looking to share your mission to Z World as a nonprofit, or know someone of a nonprofit that's looking to show Z World that you care, please visit www.zworldcares.org. Thank you so much. Back to you, Zach.
Yeah, and I just want to put a huge shout out to Z-World Webs, because they are the creator. This man built communitypayitforward.us, and he gave me the tools to control it, which, good or bad, that's within your opinion, good or bad, how I've done. But he built a beautiful website, and he helps me maintain it. But also nonprofits, seriously, it's a free website to you. Okay, why aren't you on it? The more you put your face out there, the more people can see you. There's never a place where you should not be part of. And we work very closely with all of our mission partners to make sure that we're getting them into Z-World Cares. And because there is just no such thing as, too many eyes on you. So, well, Aviva, please
Yes.
teach us about active listening.
Absolutely. So what I'll go into first is the whole concept we'll work on today is called a safe conversation dialogue. It's based on the therapy model I use for couples and people in other relationships called Imago relationship therapy. Imago relationship therapy, if you want to Google, Harville Hendricks and his wife Helen LaKelly Hunt are the founders of Imago therapy. Imago is a therapy that's designed to help any person or people in relationships feel more connected. So the baseline about what is important today to explore and show is connection is the goal, safety is the real overarching need for a conversation to feel safe and to feel like you are effectively expressing yourself and being understood, is that a conversation or dialogue can be safe. And those aspects really help. And then what Lynn mentioned about positivity or appreciation. Appreciation always brings us into the part of our brain that's not about negativity. And so it's not always possible in a conversation, but it's usually the first part of any dialogue that I teach is to teach people how to have the process of having a safe conversation, a dialogue, because they're working from their prefrontal cortex of appreciation. If they're working from their amygdala and danger signal area of their brain, that's when conversations and connection just go offline. And that's what happens in most conversations in our lives, is that there's no guarantee in any way of safety. Of course, people can't set out to have a casual everyday conversation saying, is this a safe conversation? But if you learn the skill set for how to be safe in your part of a conversation, you'll notice that the people involved on the other side of it, even if they're not actively doing it like we will do today very consciously, they notice it. They notice the energetic shift that you are also responding to them clearly, understanding them fully, and making sure you understand what they mean. So in turn, their reaction will be just a way that energy works, is that any system is affected by a change in the system. So you'll see today, everybody's very conscious of what we're doing, but in the outside world, you'll always approach it first like this other person's not going to get it unless I keep trying, in terms of speaking clearly and asking for help. So you'll just see how it's designed. So Imago therapy in itself is about people feeling safe in their relationships. And I'm certified in Imago therapy and in safe conversation skill set training. So part of what I do is to teach the skills we'll do today in classrooms, in online classes, lunch and learns online, in person, human resource departments. So that's also one of the reasons I like to share what it's about, to explore it more. So when I met with Z and Lynn before this actual recording, just to talk about what we'll do today, we talked about what a safe conversation is, and we're going to be doing that for active listening. Active listening is important because it is an exercise, a skill set you have to develop for feeling more engaged with a person. And we talked about the theme that might be really applicable to the population watching the show, veterans or their caregivers that are very interested in making sure they can access help and assistance. And also the fact that in general, one of the frustrations is that they try to get help and assistance and often are turned away or postponed or delayed. And I think that even you, Zach, in your own exploration of assistance have encountered that many, many times, a delay, a postponement, saying it's not exactly what you're saying it is. When you're reporting something painful or difficult for yourself, there's a lot going on in communication that could be improved greatly, but through active listening, at least if one party's doing it, it can improve the interaction between any two people. So I would say, are there any questions, but we don't know if there are any questions yet.
Actually, I do have one for you. And are there any keywords or key signs that you're not in a safe conversation? Are there any things that you can look for and immediately tell that you're not in a conversation?
Absolutely. What also is very much a focus for the work I do with everyone is to help them be more aware of their nervous system reaction. So when something's not safe in general, no matter what it is, you will have a reaction that you feel. This is not safe to speak more about this. This person doesn't hear me. Or it's dangerous. They're not a safe person to talk to because of past experiences with them. What you're feeling, it's important to feel it into your body. What doesn't feel right about an interaction, feeling into your body is very much about what energy work is about. I don't mean energy work in the same exact way that Lynn is talking about energy work. I'm talking about in energy psychology, where the brain operates for safety. The amygdala, the primal part of our brain that has stayed here since way back, our ancestors had it very much as a method for them to determine if they were safe in the jungle, in the caveman days. Was there a lion, tiger, or bear coming toward them? Their amygdala would do like a fire alarm, get out of the way, run fast, hide. That part of the brain is still there. It came with us all the way through the generations. And anything that feels unsafe, even if it's just something very different than a lion, tiger, or bear coming at us, will feel as dangerous as that. We've all had that experience where if we have an argument with someone, which is about the conversation safety, and we can't understand the morning after, why did I feel the way I felt? Why did I react as though it was life or death? Because the part of your brain that reacts to life or death threats was activated by the intensity of whatever happened. And often we'll look back and say, it makes no sense. I was so upset about that garbage can being taken in each night, and it's not that important. How could I have been that upset about it? It's because the pathway in the brain is going to the danger signal part of your brain, the amygdala, and saying, alert, alert, this is not safe. And usually it's not safe because the way people are discussing something or how they're attacking each other. They're often not ensuring that they will be safe for each other. So there'll be attacks, there'll be dismissiveness, there'll be gaslighting, there'll be insults, there'll be below the belt statements. And all of that will have you start to cringe and hold in so that that feels unsafe. But again, sometimes the awareness of it doesn't match the amount of reaction you're feeling. But that's when you can know there's something in there I'm being activated about. And that's what also is called triggers to lots of people. They realize they're triggered by something because they notice almost immediately, because it's not a thought out reaction, it's a immediate reaction. So the slower term that's very important to pay attention to is response. So between trigger and reaction, can't help the first reaction, but you can recognize the reaction and then say, but how will I respond? Most people, unfortunately, but they've been encouraged to do so, react right away with whatever comes out. And there's no filtering, there's no keeping it softer, understanding how they affect the other person or the other group they're talking to. They just react and think that's the way to do it. And that is a very culturally popular way of being right now, as we all know. It's not about let's take some time, let's make sure that we respond in a way that's safer and kinder. We are actually getting a lot of feedback in social media that it's okay to react. The minute you react, that's it. It's okay to insult, it's okay to diminish other people. So the whole thing that we're doing also in this kind of skill set training is to help people go slower, because if you have to take one thing away from how to help this be better, is to go slowly. And that helps with everything, because when we go slower, we have more resources for how to do something more kindly, more gently, more effectively. So the safety that you're asking about, how do you know? You'll feel it in your body. You know that you're reacting immediately and it doesn't seem in proportion. That's another way to know something's not safe. And so those are just a little bit of the guidelines, but I'd say the most important part to keep in mind is that our culture is encouraging ways to react that are not healthy, but it's encouraged. So people are getting more fueled. This is how to be. And we're trying to say, no, let's go backwards a little bit and say, this is not the way to be. It's not helping. So I hope I answered you, even though it was a lengthy answer.
Yeah, actually you did. And one more question before we begin. If one of the two parties is practicing active listening, is that going to lessen the chance that two people are saying the exact same thing, yet there's an argument because they don't say it the same way?
I mean, two people in conversation that are having difficulty?
Yeah.
Well, one thing that helps is to just always validate the other person. All right, so I heard what you say. You hear it colloquially like, I got you, or I hear you. But what you really need to do is, okay, so if I've heard what you're saying, you said that this is bothering you because it frustrates you that I'm, let's say, late all the time, in your opinion, because it makes you have to wait longer than you need to, and you get somewhere on time, and that's frustrating. Like, you tell them what you understand of what they've said, and they're usually so upset and activated because they feel they would not be understood for what they're saying. But the minute you do that, it hits like, oh, yeah, that is what I was saying. They're listening to me. So even if they're not actively listening yet in what they're aware of how to do, they are getting the feeling of, oh, somebody heard me. And that's how it starts to soften when only one person's doing it.
Okay. Perfect. That's all I've got right now.
Okay.
Did either of you have something that you wanted to add?
Not thus far.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with showing active listening skills to the audience. So Z and Lynn have volunteered to help me today, and they've been somewhat familiar with the way that I work and what I do to help people with their connection in relationships and also to downregulate their activated nervous systems. Both are really important separately and together. And since every day of our lives, we are interacting with people in any number of ways. It's not just conversations, it's texts and emails. It's any way that you're trying to connect and communicate. How it's done is very important for what you want to have as the goal or result for what you're asking or doing. And sometimes, of course, we're aimless. We don't know why we're doing something. We're not having any goal to that. But I thought for this audience, it might be helpful again to focus on the theme of how do I ask for help when I really need it? Because the population often needs something that, for one thing, they don't know who to ask, or they ask professionals that don't respond well. And the other way is that they keep having to ask. So it's very frustrating. So there's frustration involved that is about the other party most of the time not really knowing how to do the active listening. So we'll also focus on the frustration of that situation. But for now, we'll just do a demonstration of actively listening where Z and Lynn will be sender and receiver about what it is to ask for help and when I really need it. I mean, they'll talk about how it feels to be trying to ask for help and need it and what it brings up for them. So we'll do that. So in the active listening dialogue, we have a sender and receiver, and then they reverse roles after they've all gone for their parts. The sender's finished, the receiver switches, and then they switch. So we will first have, I think I'm going to just ask Lynn to be the first sender today, and that will be that Z is the receiver, and I'll walk through the steps of active listening. And if later after this, Zach, you want to attach the outline of an active listening conversation, I can send that to you to put on the screen for people.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Lynn and Z, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. So what we'll first do is, because you're the first sender, Lynn, we're going to ask Z, I'd like to have a dialogue about how to ask for help when I really need it. Is this a good time? Can you ask him that?
Z, I would like to have a conversation about how to ask for help. Is this a good time?
It is an excellent time. Thank
So
you
you
for
also want
asking.
to add the part when I really need it, because I think even earlier you mentioned that part was really important when we were talking about the topic. So we're asking for the topic and if it's a good time. And the reason those two parts are important is we've all been part of conversations where somebody might say, I want to speak to you, and they don't tell you why, and they don't want to know if it's good for you to listen to them at that time. So you're already trying to gauge if it's a good time for someone to receive information from you and be fully ready for that. When we listen, when we're not ready, we feel forced and we often aren't ready to listen. We just pretend we're listening or try really hard, but we're so pressed upon that we must do it in that moment that it's not a sincere effort. So the invitation is important for already those two things. Is it a good time for the listener? And what are we going to talk about? So thank you, Lynn, for asking him. It is a good time for Z. If it were not a good time in regular life, your partner that you're asking can always say, now's not a good time. How about in a few hours or after I had dinner? Always try to offer the person a time you will listen to them so that you are allowing for the fact that they really want to be heard and you're offering that, yes, I will do that with you and for you. And of course, this isn't a perfect world, not an imperfect world. Okay, so Z's available. It's a good time. So Lynn, you'll just start off with a sentence like, so when just the topic, when I look for help and I really need it, what I experience is.
So when I look for help and I really need it and I can't find that help, what I experience is frustration, confusion, like I should be smart enough to figure things out, and just a general overwhelm of what is out there and where to start.
Okay. So Z, now what you'll do is try to mirror that back. And what that means is if I heard what you said, and if at any point you felt you didn't get something, you're always going to check, did I get that? So if you're able to mirror back, if I heard what you said, Lynn, and go ahead.
If I heard what you said, Lynn, there are moments where you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, or not sure if the information is out there. Did I get all that?
Yes, you did.
Well, in a way, not. You could just let him know you got some of it, but the part you didn't get was, do you remember the other part?
I don't remember the other
The
part.
frustration and feeling like you should know the answer yourself already. So the other parts, you can restate them. So I also,
So I feel frustrated. I also feel overwhelmed. Um, like I should be smart enough to figure things out for myself, but I'm not.
okay, so that's a good chunk for mirroring.
Okay.
So Z, if I heard what you also just said,
If I heard what you also said, you also feel like you should have all the answers you're looking for, even though you do have all the right answers, even though you feel frustrated or overwhelmed at times. Did I get all that?
and the thing about active listening as a dialogue exercise, if the person missed anything or you want to add more, you just say, you got most of it. I also wanted to mention, and you can add something. So if there's anything, go ahead.
Yeah, you got most of that. I also want to mention that we know this is a tricky topic, so I appreciate your taking the time to talk about this with me.
Thank you, Lynn, for acknowledging, and I do understand that this is a very tricky topic to discuss in a conversation,
So
and you're
Z, I have to interrupt there because what you're doing is mirroring, exactly mirroring. So the term mirroring for active listening means that you directly mirror, like a real mirror, what the person said. And we have to refrain from how our brains want to go into opinion, judgment, value, because that's the skill set we're trying to train ourselves to have, is even though we have the inner tendency, like you're saying, it makes sense and I appreciate it, that's not what we're doing. We're doing mirroring. And that's why it's hard active listening, is you exactly have to try to reflect what the person is sending you.
Okay, I've got a really quick question for you,
Mhm.
Aviva. In this exercise here, would it benefit the respondent, in this case, Mr. Z, if Aviva or if Lynn's questions, like if she took and maybe made that in two statements to where
Yes.
he didn't have to listen, to where you're not listening to just
Mhm.
a whole bunch in one.
Yes, actually, when you teach more over time with people in active listening and imago therapy, you help them know that there is the option to say, there is the way to ask for a pause. You can do some kind of a signal. Can I just do this part? Can I reflect this part back first? And they can do that. Often people are in the same room, so they can show each other by a gesture in the room. And it shouldn't be a gesture like stop, because that is very off-putting and it evokes a lot for the nervous system to have someone put your hand in your face. In my training, my instructor mentioned, how about you just put your fingers up on your lap if you're sitting across, like, okay, can I repeat that back? But online, sometimes you need just another way to say, just very subtle. The subtlety is important. So yes, more chunks help. Smaller chunks over time in general help people repeat back. So that's true, because the way our brains work is that it's trying to listen actively, and it's very much about, I took that part in, I took that part in, I took that part in. So yes, that makes perfect sense. And so now, Lynn, what I'm going to ask you to do then is elaborate more. And we call this in active listening dialogue exercises sort of deepening the information, so that you're explaining more of why this is something that's frustrating. So you might want to, if you could, retrieve, and when is this frustrating? What it reminds me of from my past experiences is,
Okay. So what this reminds me of is situations when I was younger and I needed help in school, and I would ask the teachers for help, but they thought that I was too smart and didn't need it, and so they wouldn't give me this help.
okay, so that's a good chunk. And so Z, if you're able to mirror that, please do. And if you found that you need to hear it again, you're always able to ask, could you please resend that? Or, that type of thing. So if you're able to mirror what she just said, go right ahead.
Of course. So what I hear is you feel frustrated that you were not given the opportunity to learn because your teachers felt like you already knew and therefore didn't further elaborate on what they wanted to teach you, what you wanted to learn. Did I get all that?
Pretty close. It's that when I would ask for help, they wouldn't give me help because they thought I was smart enough to figure it out on my own.
Okay,
Okay.
mirror that.
Yes. So if I understand correctly, when you wanted to learn a subject, the teachers or your teacher would not give you the lesson needed because they thought you knew the topic already and therefore it did not direct you into learning what you needed to know, even though you needed the help. Did I get all that?
Yeah, we're getting closer. It's that I needed help. Like I was having trouble learning or I was having trouble finding information. And when I would say to a teacher, I'm having trouble finding information, it's like they thought I just needed to try harder. Like maybe I was being lazy by asking them instead of doing it for myself, and they would just send me off without any help.
Okay, this is very important, the clarity, the back and forth of did I get that? And Lynn refining it more, because if Lynn was not able to offer the clarity, then there would be a complete misunderstanding by Z of what he took in. So that's why the active listening is a checking. Did I get that? Did I get that? If I heard all that you said, I got that. Did I get that? So Z, I know I'm interrupting, so it might take away the flow. Lynn, can you say the last thing you said succinctly so that Z can say it right away and I won't interrupt?
Last thing that I said succinctly. When I would ask teachers for help, they would think that I was smart enough to figure things out on my own. And so they wouldn't give me the help that I needed.
Okay, great. Z, can you mirror that?
Of course. So if I understand correctly, when you requested for help or further clarification, the teachers would not give you the clarification because they thought you already knew the subject already and therefore asked you to figure it out yourself. Did I get all that?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now there's a part where we have the receiver ask, is there more about that? And the reason they ask that is you can even hear in the tone, is there more about that? Shows curiosity, and curiosity invites the sender to feel safe enough that the person wants to hear more from them. So what we're doing here, when there's the question, is there more about that, is we are trying to address, as a healing technique, the fact that most people do not get asked, is there more about that? They get told, are you done yet? Or they get someone interrupting with, well, okay, you might have had that experience, but that's not how it was for me. Like, this is not the stuff that we bring into something that's safe. That's what most people bring into conversations is opinion, competition, one-upmanship, and talking about their own experience instead of listening fully to the other person's experience. So we are trying, and it is work, as you'll notice. It feels difficult if you try it yourself to do this, especially the first few times when you're learning it as a habit. You're retraining your brain to be more involved in actively engaging with somebody else. So now we had all that, and just to say that now Z has mirrored Lynn, and then just say, is there more about that, to see if Lynn has more about that.
Of course. If I may ask, Lynn, is there more about that you'd like to share?
Um, I will share that it's important for me to feel trusted when I'm asking for help. If I'm asking for help, it's because I truly need it, not because I'm lying or trying to play a trick on someone or get out of doing something I need to do.
Great. Z, can you mirror that?
Of course. If I understand, you want to feel trusted and know the information and not feel like you're not doing something that you intend to do while feeling trusted. Did I get all that?
I don't know.
I think there was some part in there that wasn't part of your send that had to do with intention. That wasn't part of what you sent. It's more about, I want to be taken as really needing help and not question about my intention to need help. Like I'm asking for help because I need help. It's not their imagination where they throw back at you, something about that disconnect.
Right. I guess what I'm asking for is for him to trust me when I say I need help, that I really need it.
If I understand correctly, you are asking for that trust that you need. Did I get all that? If
That
not,
you need the
please let
help
me
you're
know.
asking for, that you need the help you're asking for.
That you need the help that you're asking for. Did I get all that?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so while we're fresh into what Lynn sent as her statements about what it means when she's asking for help when she really needs it, what would be next? I would explore more if we were going more into it for a longer period of time. And I can absolutely do that with anyone that reaches out to me to have exercises in active listening or connection and relationship work. But what I'll say now is the next step, because Z has paid a lot of close attention. He's actively tried to hear everything Lynn said, take it in, repeat it back. You see that that burns a lot of calories. It takes a lot of energy. It does. So the next part is a summary mirror, which means that if he thinks about everything Lynn said as a whole, he can just say, if I heard all that you said, and it doesn't have to be verbatim unless the person sending it says, please repeat every word I said, which is usually not possible or easy to do. Not that anything's easy. Sorry, nothing's easy. I have to just say that. But if I heard all that you said, and then you try to summarize what Lynn has said, and then you'll be checking in with her when you've finished your summary to see if you got what she sent. So Z, if I heard all that you said,
Of course. If I heard all that you said, Lynn, you feel that when you needed help, asked for help from one of your teachers, they thought that you already knew the subject and did not trust you. Well, they did trust you, excuse me. They did not follow up. I'm going to start over. My apologies. So, if I understand correctly, Lynn, there have been moments when you asked your teachers for help but did not teach you because they thought you already knew the subject. And if their assumption of you knowing the subject, they would ask you to go ahead and figure out the subject yourself. But there's the lack of trust that you feel if when you're learning something new, and that's as far as I know. Did I get all that?
so
If not,
you can
please.
clarify, Lynn, that the trust had to do with you want them to trust you, because that was not that you had a lack of trust. So anything that you need to clarify to make sure it's understood, you can explain, yes, but when I said trust, I meant they trust me for being authentically asking for help. So is that part of it, Lynn? That sounds like what you meant by
Yes,
trust.
yes.
Okay. So then it's the back and forth and the summary mirror. So he asked, did I get that? And he got most of that. So you can say, you got most of that. The part about trust was, and then we just clarified what that was. And so the next part is called validation. And validation is a very soothing aspect of the whole process, because often we are not validated. And validated really means that we're seeing that the other person's experience and world makes sense. It makes sense to them. In our culture, again, we have the experience, and again, that's too much promoted, that if we don't agree with someone, we just tell them they're wrong, that they're stupid, that how ridiculous. That's not what we do in a safe conversation, because that's dangerous. It's dangerous to judge someone, to evaluate, to have an opinion about them, to discount their experience. So validation is to say that your world makes sense, and the reason it makes sense is from what you shared with me. So Z, what you'll do now is just say, it makes sense that you feel that way. You'll share what she shared. And the reason it makes sense for Lynn, not how you might interpret it, but how it makes sense for Lynn. So go right ahead.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Validation. Validation is
Yes.
letting Lynn know that it makes sense for her, and you'll share what makes sense and the reason it makes sense for her. So you're doing all this reflecting of what her world is like, that you've heard what her experience is like.
Okay. I I sense
No, it
what
makes
you're
sense. It makes sense.
it makes sense of what you're going through, Lynn, and I appreciate you sharing this with me and your feeling of not being heard or that sense of trust that you hope to get from others, and for my understanding of asking for that help when it's not given to you due to their assumptions of them thinking you know all the subjects that's being taught, but that further clarification does create that sense of distance.
So
And
it makes sense that you would be frustrated
it would
because
make
people didn't take you at your face value that I need help and I'm asking for it. So that's what it is like. It makes sense. Your world and your experience makes sense. You're letting her know completely.
Well said. Yes, and it makes total sense that you would feel frustrated knowing that you are trying to learn a subject with them assuming that you know the subject already and having you learn the subject yourself. And it's frustrating when you want to learn from the experts and when the experts don't want to teach you because they assume that you know the subject already. And it's just a disconnect, and it does create that boundary and a lack of trust, even though you are a trustworthy person.
Well, I just have to interrupt only because our brains will do what it's doing. It's going into a sideline discussion about how much you value Lynn and her authenticity and how we know that about her. We have to shut down our opinions in validation. It's very hard. It's very hard. The natural instinct is to say, I know she's wonderful and she's kind and she's articulate and she asked for help and how could people not answer her? Like your other brain goes online. In validation, it's purely you're understanding the other person's experience from what they've shared about what it's like for them. So you got most of that, but you don't have to feel pressured to add the make, I think you're this way, or how your brain's trying to integrate that you know Lynn and respect her. You're trying to just mirror back in a different way. Validation is also a mirroring experience where you're mirroring that it makes sense for them. And the reason, again, that makes sense is because in our world, we do not validate other people and people don't validate us. It's not a natural experience. When it does happen, it feels wonderful. And we've all had those isolated experiences where it feels wonderful, where that practitioner might say to us, finally, your pain level makes sense. It makes sense that those medications didn't work for you, that you were not able to feel any relief from that. How isolating that must have been. From what you're sharing, it was isolating. I went there myself. How isolating that must have been. That's my own interpretation. You're expressing that it was isolating, it was difficult. So validation soothes the part of us. All of these parts of the dialogue are soothing and healing. It soothes the part of us that was never told, your world makes sense. All of our worlds make sense to us. They don't make sense to the next person, but they make sense to us. And to have someone honor that, that's very healing. So validation is that. And the last part is empathy in a dialogue like this. So Z, you would just say, the emotions I sensed you, Lynn, felt, and you're going to only what she expressed, not what you would have felt in the same situation, but the emotions I sensed you felt were, and if you can list what you sensed from Lynn.
Of course, Lynn, the emotions that I felt from this conversation were frustration, distance, and again, frustration and a little bit of confusion in the process when you're trying to learn a subject and when someone assumes that you know the subject when you're yearning for more of that knowledge. Did I get all that?
You did. You did.
And you just ask her, are there any emotions I missed?
Are there any emotions that I missed, Lynn?
Yeah.
So there was one, I think, about being diminished by the people answering you, meaning they don't take you seriously. So in a way, invalidation, if a person says, you should know that, it's sort of like your question was invalidated, that you really need the help. So invalidation, anything else that comes to mind as you think about the more subtle emotions under what it was like to do that, ask for help and be told you don't really need to be asking, or I don't believe you.
I mean, the big emotion is rejection, right?
Okay, rejection. So those are additional subtleties that were in there in Lynn's expression of what she was feeling about the topic, and also from remembering situations where it happened before. So all of those are the emotions. And so basically you've covered mirroring, summary mirroring, validation, and empathy. And then Z, you would just say, thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for sharing.
And then you would say, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, Z.
And what we would do then is switch the roles with both of them so that Z is the sender and Lynn's the receiver. And that's always because any dynamic between two people in an exercise format of a safe conversation and active listening dialogue is that everybody's trying to understand each other, not just a one-way street. Although if you have a medical situation where you're going to doctors and practitioners, often it's one way because you're asking for help and they are the specialist trying to fulfill the role of helping you, and you're trying to get the help you need from them. But perhaps you can just see from how this went, and you can all ask questions, how this might apply to when you're needing assistance, trying to get help, and you do or don't feel heard. And then I can also give some pointers on how you can try more than once if people aren't listening to you. So now questions are open.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that needs to be said to people who are watching this and trying to figure this out the first time is there was a little bit of disjointed in this, but you need to remember this wasn't a fluent conversation. This was a teaching exercise. So, this isn't going to be the way a normal conversation goes. I mean, there's going to be instant action and reaction throughout the whole thing. So please don't think that this is the way that that conversation goes. Just use the lessons that you learned, and that'll help you to understand the way that this works. I still think, Aviva, what you were saying makes complete and total sense, because truthfully, it does mean that you as the question asker, you understand that the person that you're talking to completely understands the question, and they understand the conversation, and they understand your feelings. What at this point is Mr. Z's job after he has made it very clear that he understands Lynn's question? Is there a certain rule that, if as long as he understands, and is this where he gives his opinion after he makes it clear he understands her question, or his expertise, if you will?
Okay, well, just to reiterate what you're saying, also, it's important. This is an exercise format. Very often, for example, there are workshops that I am a clinical assistant at that have to do with couples workshops that use this dialogue process. And one of the first questions asked usually by their participants are, this doesn't feel natural. Is this how people really going to talk? They don't talk this way. And it's usually reinforced by Harville Hendricks at these workshops for couples. This is an exercise. That's why it feels like an exercise. It's not natural flowing conversation, but what it's doing is retraining how we work with expressing ourselves in a more clear way to make sure we're understood. And partners in those workshops are intentionally in both directions, trying to have more connection and understanding between themselves. But what would happen next if Z were, like, say, the practitioner of a medical specialty that Lynn is going for help to get help in that specialty? If he was practicing as he was active listening, he'd repeat back what she's reporting, which very good practitioners do, meaning the doctor will say, okay, let me hear what you've told me. You've told me X, Y, and Z are your symptoms. You've told me the pain level you have is such and such. It happens to you in these circumstances, but not in those, or when you sleep and not when you're wakeful. So he would sort of summarize and offer what his expertise could help her with if he's actively listened. And because he'd repeat back and then say, okay, so given all that, one thing we might explore is, and then there might be something like a suggestion for blood work, or a suggestion for trying a different medication dosage, or for physical therapy. There'd be understanding. Again, I'm trying to model it ongoing for medical help because so many of the veterans are doing that or trying to. And then her experience would probably be, he's heard me, he's understood me, he's trying to help me. So that would be the way it would in a perfect world, it would work. The training of the skill set is to get everybody on board for how to be more intentional in their communication, be more specific about clarity. The frustration will also come into play that often veterans will have to go to many practitioners before they find someone who will help them. So this will get very tiring to try to explain yourself to many people. But the best thing available is to know you're being as clear as you can be. And that's where Lynn's point about being taken seriously is also very important. Many people are not taken seriously when they go for help, and it's an ongoing frustration. It's a real thing. But I can also help people in that regard with their frustration at not being fully heard, meaning with my other energy modalities, such as the EFT tapping and logosynthesis, is about what that feels like to be in that position. That's a whole other area of examination and helping someone. So I don't know if I answered exactly, but I tried to give the model of going to a practitioner for help.
May I?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Just to piggyback on what you said, somebody going to an appointment with a practitioner and the practitioner needing to mirror back what was said. If I am going to a practitioner, I have no issue with taking a list of notes, things I know I want to talk to that doctor about. Would that be appropriate in any case in a different like a romantic relationship or a family relationship? If I feel like I want to have something to remind myself of what I need to talk about, is that appropriate? Is that going to weird somebody out if I say I want to have this conversation and here's my list?
Well, usually one topic at a time is ideal for practicing a active listening dialogue with someone, because too many will just make the mind for both parties go in different directions. They can't focus, but if they can focus on one thing at a time. In relationships, in this work, we have couples or partners. They don't have to just be couples. They can be close relationship, anybody, parents and children, siblings, coworkers, a list of ideal visions of what they want out of the relationship. So there'll be vision statements, and then they'll work on each vision one at a time so that both of them will discuss. Let's say if it's a couple in a relationship, they want more date nights instead of always just focusing on chores and children in the house. They might work on how can we accomplish that we're both happy with that idea of having more time isolated as a date night every so often. Like they'd establish how often, they'd establish where they'd really like to go, or how they'd like to do it. Would it be an outing, or would it be some staying in and having a babysitter? It would be discussion. So there's nothing wrong at all. It's just clarity. It helps you have clarity. What do you want? Relationship visions is what you're talking about relationships, about going to a practitioner. I've had to say, and there's not, some listen, some don't. Can I please ask you the next question I have? Like preempting it, like that's sort of the invitation. Like, I'd like to discuss this. Is this a good time? But if you're in the office with a doctor and they're going through their note taking, I'll say, I want to ask you one or two things when you have a chance while they're usually taking their notes at the time. And then you've asked, and usually, okay, what would you like to let me know about? So you have the list, and hopefully the practitioners are able to listen and will listen. I know it's hard. They don't always listen. So I don't know. Did I answer your question, Lynn?
You did. Thank you.
Okay.
My next question for you, Aviva, is how important is this for caregivers?
For caregivers, it's important. Very often caregivers have to interpret what somebody needs because the person they are caregiving for may not be entirely verbal, capable of expressing themselves. Some of their language is not going to be verbal. It's going to be nonverbal language. If you have someone who is nonverbal anyway because of their impairment or condition, you have to actually interpret everything else that they're offering you through their body language, through their fatigue level, through their facial expressions. So for caregivers, it sometimes can be an active dialogue back and forth, but if you have someone who's not able, for whatever reason, to have a conversation, so it would not be a verbal conversation, but intuitive. What are they showing me by their level of discomfort, by their crying level, pain that they seem to have, flinching? It's an interpretation exercise in many cases, or if somebody can express it, it's the same. I need you to go more slowly with me. I can't rush through that experience. Can you please go slower walking to the car with me? I can't do it. Like expressing self to their ability is how it would be modeled for a caregiver and caregiver recipient of care. Yes, Steve?
I do have a question. As you were both talking, and thank you for allowing me to do this demonstration, I just want to start by saying, Lynn, you are heard. You are definitely someone who learns a lot of great things and has taught me about the importance of seeing above the grass, no matter how high or low it is. And it's just wonderful. And I did have a question for you, Aviva. And as a aspiring master active listener like yourselves, I often come across an issue where, I like to listen. I try to listen and active listen, but I realize that when I'm silent for a long period of time, the other recipient, it just assumes they want me to end the conversation. So it's like, oh well, that's all I have to say. Like I want to have the opportunity to say, well, before we end this conversation, can I take a moment to respond? So what do you do in a situation when you're receiving the whole time, but when they're done talking, they assume you don't want to talk. They just think, oh, this person's not even
Well,
attempting to listen. Yes,
you
Aviva.
can use some of the language of, okay, so before I let you know all that I've understood of what you said, I also want to make sure I let you know this or that. Sort of a back and forth, like before I forget. That's often a way to help incorporate, okay, I heard what you said. I'd like to let you know that I've heard everything. Before I forget, there is something I want to ask you at the end, or can I ask you one question before I say it all back? But either direction of whoever you're working with, if you think they can accept that you're going to let them know after something is finished, or one more thing you'd like to say. Sometimes have to advocate. If it's not a dialogue exercise, advocate for yourself. If there's just one more thing I want to ask before we get off. It works. Ball is both courts, not just one person's court.
Thank you, Aviva. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking these questions.
Super helpful. I'm going to remember that in my next call.
Okay. So Zach, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going to say I've actually seen that happen with Z, and quite a few of the conversations he and I have. There is a weird, almost just lull, and then I understand. Oh wait, he's waiting to see if I have anything else to say. And I can tell it's uncomfortable for him because I have a tendency just to whoop, there's a shiny squirrel. I'm just going to go and continue to go until I'm done. So, I am the king of put as much information as you can into one sentence and see what happens. But yeah, I've seen what Z was talking about there on that. But
Sometimes there
so
just has to be a more developed or naturally developed over time ability to just say, but I just want to say one more thing. Like you do have to do a polite, not in a conversation dialogue, that's very methodical, but in a conversation in regular life, I just want to say one more thing, or there's something I want to add that just came to mind. Just a little more of an advocacy impulse to have that develop over time. Everybody needs to figure out how to do that in a way that works in most conversations. And of course, you're going to encounter people that don't listen at all. That's a whole other experience. But you can always try. Say, there's just one more thing I want to say. And if it's somebody you need to interact with over time and you notice they have a habit of not really welcoming more information from you, you might just say, before we start, last time I didn't get a chance to say, and I really would like to say, and then you offer what you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to last time, and see how that goes. Because sometimes the dynamic just has to have a little bit of an adjustment, that they're so accustomed to how it's gone, they think it's always the same way each time, which can lead to frustration because you're not really asking for what you're needing from that interaction. So if you started with, I just want to say, because last time it came to mind after we got off our call, XYZ. No Z, no pun intended to Z. X,
Awesome.
XYZ. Yeah.
I really think one of the most important things that we got in this exercise for me was, as a listener, the subtle, hey, let me respond here, because one of the things that I do with Les Simpson, who's another one of our show hosts, is, we talk about our brain has a limit on how much you can take in.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can get lost if somebody just keeps going and going and going. And that having that little wait, you know, let me respond here
Mm-hmm.
so I make sure I get everything. So I think that that's just an important thing to let people understand that when you're listening, it is okay to, it's not okay to interrupt them. It's not okay to sit there and go, "Hey, wait, stop, stop, stop," but just the little subtle,
We're all like, yeah, that happens all the time everywhere I go. It's like, yeah.
yeah, yeah, but the little subtle, hey, mm, you know, that's probably a little too much, but I like the little subtle motion to where it makes people think, okay, wait, they're trying to tell me something.
Oh, just another part to add that's really important about having a safe conversation is that it's balanced. It's not talking down. Many of our conversations with people are top down, like they're talking down to us. They're not talking with us. And the goal of a safe conversation or imago dialogue is that you're at the same parallel level of energetic approach so that it's not a power experience. It's not a diminishing experience. And it's forced not to be. There are people that only know how to relate in a very top-down way, and you're trying to help them, especially in close relationships. That's one of their tensions when they come for help, is that there is this kind of, I talk to him or her, and this person saying they only talk down to me, they're not hearing me, and they aren't because they're over here and they don't have any awareness of how to listen. They're like, they're only, their skill set is talking down, or sometimes they're very, in their work fields, they're about teaching and educating and taking control, whatever field they're in. So they have that persona, and they're in their intimacy, it never works. It may work in their professions, but it doesn't work in their intimate, close relationships. And you're always trying to help them through these exercises and education about these things to come to a regular, same level conversation, which is safe because we're not in competition. We're not protecting ourselves from the power dynamic. So that's just something to add that's very important. And in a doctor-patient relationship, there is often the power dynamic. So you're requesting, but there's also supposed to be how they're trained to be available and listen. There's not supposed to be top down. It's supposed to be, what do you need from me? I can offer the help. And again, we know that we don't encounter that all the time. We're trying to, but knowing that we want that helps a lot about how we approach the situation. So I just had to add that thing about the top down and not same level conversation.
Z, let me ask you, because you are very good at you are very good at mirroring and answering the questions. Was there anything that you did to, like, let's just say, were you listening to maybe an interview on TV or something, or on the radio or in a book, and you practiced? Was there anything that you did to practice this to get at the level that you're at?
It's a great question, and I really do appreciate the accolades with my mirroring skills and my active listening. It's a learning process, and this demonstration is very helpful for me personally and professionally. I always listen to podcasts. I always listen to see how they ask questions. I can't think of any at the moment, but I'll just I always forget his name, but he always, he does. I find it annoying sometimes when he does, like let the person speak first and not make those verbal cues. I try to avoid doing that sometimes. So I'm taking all the negative things that I don't like to hear and apply the positives that I think is positive. So I do listen to podcasts and some cases vodcasts, and of course, one of my favorite podcasts, the Pay It Forward podcast, to follow along how you ask questions, nod when appropriate, and I hope that answers your question. Did I get
Yeah,
all that?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
And Lynn, how do you put this in practice when you're reading someone?
Well, everyone's energy is different. There is certainly an element of being able to read somebody's energy and read somebody's body language. Um, but one of the first things that I try to do, whether it's a full-length reading or a party reading, is I tell people, take a moment, get in your Zen zone, whatever it is, because I want to cue that switch from, I think we were talking about the amygdala before, and certainly when somebody comes into something like a tarot reading, they can be intimidated, they can be frightened, they can have superstitions going through their minds, and so this whole amygdala area is lit up, and we need that to calm down so that we can enter a more meditative state and a more receptive state.
I see how, Lynn, with what you were just saying, I could see how somebody, when they come in and they're nervous, they're going to, the question they ask may be a little jumbled, and that's where being able to sit there and go, ask them, okay, this is what you said. Can you clarify that for me a little bit? And we've seen that with people, saying, just vague questions, very vague questions, talking about, well, can you see things getting better for me? Well, better for you how? You know,
There's also there's the part about managing expectations. Absolutely. You kind of have
yeah, yeah.
where somebody is to begin with to see where they're going. But there is also a real mental health aspect that, enters into the tarot realm, and that is some people who might be better served going to a traditional mental health practitioner, someone who might be better served, for example, going to Aviva and having some sort of, conversation, maybe a couple session and doing imago therapy. They might decide, well, I want to go to a tarot reader and have a couples reading instead. And now I've got all of, the problems and issues. Well, they're not having the conversation, right? I'm having this very one-sided conversation with them, telling what I see, which in a way accomplishes some of what mirroring does, in that I have these cards and now I'm saying, well, this is the mirror I've been shown, and they get to say, well, is that accurate or not? But I think the important thing to realize is that with something like a tarot reading, a couple may learn information about each other, but they're not going to learn how to speak to each other and how to work together to accomplish the bright, shining, happy future that they both want, that might even be in those cards. There's still work involved.
Wonderful. So, Aviva, do you have anything to ask our guests, or
Well, basically, they did a beautiful job of showing the steps. The steps are applicable to almost any topic or conversation. And if people want to work with me, I do go into much more than what we did today, just to show how much it can deepen awareness of what's going on in a relationship or a situation. Very often, like the encouragement I give after they've shared what they first say is, and the reason that's important to me, which I got some of that today, but then we go even further back. The earliest I remember having this feeling and what it really means to me when this happens to me. Usually, if somebody's doing something that makes you feel good, it's because it reminds you of somebody who did that before for you, or it reminds you that you really wished it had been done before and it wasn't. It's somewhere usually in that two extreme areas, when you appreciate or value or feel affected by something someone does. That doesn't always apply to medical settings when you're asking for help, which I always like to bring it back to for today. But what will happen is you will be triggered sometimes by how people did not listen to you or did listen to you as a child or developing or in school. When you're asking for assistance, you'll be triggered by how you're being responded to. What's good about awareness of that is that you can then say, I'm aware that I'm being triggered inside. I'm aware that I'm being triggered by that way that they're relating to me. How can I respond in a way that maybe will shift what they're saying to me? Because all different kinds of things happen. I just remember saying, what I'm really trying to ask you is, when I feel like they're not getting something I say, a practitioner, what I really am trying to say is, or what's really concerning me is, and I try to just do the part where they're not fully getting it, and they're not trying sometimes because their mind is just letting them make a conclusion. So these skills do help, and practicing them does help, and they have a lot of applicability in different situations. So I can do that for people if they want to work with me. And of course, it's part of the Community Pay It Forward group, and it's based on helping by the reverberation of helping helps others and others and others. So that's why I'm here today. Yes, so that's the thing that comes to mind. And I think you had a question for each of us, Zach, about Mental Health
I
Month.
do. But I also want to once again reiterate, your session is not going to be like this. Okay, excuse me. Your session is going to be more direct, and you're going to be able to ask questions and answer questions, and it's going to be we're not going to try to, Aviva's not going to try to throw everything into a 30-minute segment with you and everything. So please don't be intimidated thinking that, your first question is just going to be a water hose of information. It's going to be more fluent and more one-on-one time. So, yes, we do have a question of the day because May is Mental Health Awareness Day, and we need to really, really focus this month on what we can do to help others through. And active listening is obviously one of the best things that you can, probably the most important thing you can do for someone who is struggling. But our question of the day is going to be twofold here. I'm going to ask the question, so please answer the question and then give us your contact information. Lynn, let's go first with you. The question is, what do you do in a time of heavy stress or even trying to keep yourself out of a depressive state? And I think you already answered this, so I'm going to be interested to see what you say.
I mean, these are things that I definitely manage on an ongoing basis. So the most important thing is to build supportive habits into your life and then not being afraid to change them when they're not working. So if I'm getting overwhelmed and I have, 2 or 3 hours in the day and my choices are make a very healthy dinner and clean the house and do something else, or have a slightly less healthy snack and take a nap, I'll take the nap. Sometimes it's just a matter of not overscheduling myself, not overbooking myself when I know that I only have so many spoons to offer. Um, so turning off is good. Um, this year earlier, it came to my attention that it is a good thing when you know that you just need, a couple days or a couple hours to just not respond to the texts and the emails and things like that. Have a friend who is aware of that situation, that somebody can check in and say, "Hey, I haven't heard from Lynn in a couple days. Is everything okay?" And I would say also work on being the type of person who, when something does happen, God forbid, you're in the hospital or something like that, let people know. And so people both have the experience of, hey, if this person takes some downtime and I don't hear from them for a while, it's okay. They're doing what they need to do. And if something is, really wrong and happening, somehow I will find out. They'll let somebody know. So if we can kind of touch both of those bases, I think it's a good start.
I really think one of the things that you just said there was you got to learn how to trust somebody with who you are. But without expanding the show too much longer, how important is meditation?
The utmost importance. Sometimes, especially when we're in that high stress place, we feel like we've said all the prayers, right? You've talked to your higher power and you've gone over your wish list and the reasons why and the ways that you feel over and over and over again, and it just can wear on you. That's where meditation comes in and you can just sit. And that's all you have to do is just sit. For some people, who might feel a little more high strung, moving meditation, go for a walk and let your brain turn off that way, or sit on the exercise bike or something like that. But anytime you can get your brain to just kind of calm down and sit and do nothing, it's one of the best things you can do for yourself. Sometimes, a solution will just pop up. Sometimes it'll be just enough to, calm you down. Sometimes in that time, another person or an event might happen and it changes your situation. But especially when we're stressed out, it doesn't make sense to submerge ourselves in that stress and then hold our heads underwater for as long as we possibly can. We got to come up and breathe every once in a while. We have to detach. We have to, give the focus back to ourselves.
Beautiful. And how do people get a hold of you?
Footnotestarot.com, the beautiful website built by Mr. Z.
I seem to see a theme coming on here real quickly. So, one other thing is that if you would like a connection, if you would like an introduction, please reach out to me. I will gladly introduce you to any of these three wonderful people. The other thing you can do is scan the QR code in their little box. It's going to be there, so you can just scan that code and it'll take you directly to their landing page. You can find all their information, all their contact information. So, Lynn, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you here in 2 weeks for Lynn's Day. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I really appreciate having this conversation and getting Aviva's wisdom out there because we have all benefited from it so much.
honestly, I can't think of a better time to have this conversation than the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Month. So, Mr. Z, question to you is what do you do, my friend, to center yourself? I think is a really good way of putting it when during times of stress or even depressive times. You are on mute, my friend.
Rookie mistake. Thank you so much, Zach, Lynn, and Viva, for the kind words. And you're doing it right now. Uh, I like to surround myself with people that uplift me and make me better than I was 5 seconds ago. And a lot of things that you mentioned, Lynn, Aviva, Zach, about meditations, productive meditation, going outside for a walk, distancing yourself. And thank you, Lynn, for the shout out, Aviva and Zach as well. And it's funny you mentioned about meditations because one of my favorite pieces from Marcus Aurelius is meditations, and he always mentions that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And I don't know who really said this before, but sometimes our minds get so caught up in the moment that it turns into boiling water, but it's really hard to see through the water that's boiling. But when things get cleared up and you see things, you can see a reflection. And Aviv, I believe, mentioned about being reactive, and I am guilty of this sometimes when I'm, you know, doing a lot of things and I blurt out things that I don't mean to say, but it comes out the wrong way. And I think to myself, maybe I came across a little bit too harsh. Maybe I should wait. And the expression comes in, when you do things in anger, you can take back what you did, but you may not be able to take back what you said. So I agree with everything that you've all said, Lynn, with meditations, just seeing yourself from a situation. I find that sleeping on it helps too. Let the subconscious do its magic, and sometimes it just works out eventually. I know that sounds crazy because you can't spell crazy without Z, but you just got to trust the process when you feel like you're stuck in that loop. But more importantly, I do believe that gratitude plays a valuable role because there are people out there, including our ignored veterans, who are sleeping in the streets of subways and alleyways. And I get to wake up every day on a bed that's warm and don't have to worry about digging through the trash to find my breakfast or dinner. Imagine having a migraine, not to be insensitive, Zach. They don't have access to a medicine cabinet. They have to rely on just finding a place to sleep. And as we all know, not to get political, but there are certain places and certain cities that make it very uncomfortable for our veterans to sleep where they need to be on ventilation systems because they're intentionally sharp. But gratitude, even though I often take things for granted, like fresh water, great people like yourselves, and the ability that we can communicate via Zoom and meet up at the airport, take a shuttle bus, and meet at a hotel to do this, or in your podcast studio. We get to do things that we couldn't have done maybe 10 years ago. So I'm just so thankful for this opportunity to share the meaning of happiness, gratitude, and just always finding a way. And I appreciate the accolades, really, I do. And from all of you, I learned so much from the importance of active listening, feeling that aura of positivity, and just gratitude. And I think gratitude is the best form of currency, if you ask me, because there's plenty to give. And I'm grateful for all of you.
And just one more thing, Z. What about reading? I know
Oh,
that's
man.
something very important to you.
I cannot believe I did not mention reading. It's so great. I mean, there are different ways to obtain knowledge and learn from industry experts, but that feeling that you get to learn something that someone has already experienced, and the excitement of knowing that, wow, I read something that can help me improve as a person, or the things that I thought was true wasn't after all. But the excitement of reading word by word, letter by letter, there are these gold nuggets that often, they don't actually talk about this, and I hate to bring this up, and the education system. And I won't say certain books, but let's just say there are ways to split the difference, the power of positive thinking, or ways to think and grow rich while knowing that we were born rich. And it's not about monetary values, it's the mindset. That's where it comes from. And just reading the book itself is an accomplishment on its own, because I'm sure all of you read 100 books a year, but the average person after they graduate from high school read about maybe one or two books a year, and they're not even this thick. I could say that there's a reason why some books are this long, but it's a long story.
Ah, I get it. And contact information for you.
Thank you. Definitely
Long
reach out.
story. Ah,
There it is. Um, so please, I thank you, Lynn, Aviva, and Zach, for the accolades for my website services. It really does. It does mean a lot to me. Thank you. You can find me at the communitypayitforward.us/zworldwebs. And if you are interested of sharing your nonprofit, if you know a nonprofit that's looking to share their mission to Z World, please visit www.zworldcares.org. And thank you all so much for your support and making me 1% better. You're all great.
Well, thank you, Mr. Z. And if you can't get a hold of this man with one of the QR codes that he's got surrounding him right now, oh, there's going to be one on your other shoulder too by the time this comes out. So your other one for Z World Cares will be over there. Yep. So, and finally, to our host, Aviva, what are some of the things that you do when you are in that feeling of overwhelm or in a depressive state?
Well, for one, as I mentioned, is very key to all of what we've done today is going slower, a pause between reaction and response. And that took many, many years for me to perfect, just as a more of a habit than as a concept, because it's very easy to have concepts that we can't integrate into our behavior. But the moment I feel the stress escalating and the tension escalating and the overwhelm, I have to almost intellectually first say, you have to go slower. Like my body doesn't want to. My body's always trying to stay, I have to respond right away. I have to answer that email right away. I better make sure I take care of that right away. And yesterday, as an example, I had a very stimulating, exciting weekend of a lot of social things. But then when I got home at the end of the day, I was overstimulated with wanting to keep active. And I also knew I was too tired to keep going and pushing and pushing and going. But my old habits were keep push, 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 keep going, keep trying, push yourself out, go for another walk. And I actually said, do I really want to? I had to have this inner conversation. What do I really need? I really need to stay still. So I stayed still. I didn't like it. It's like a kid. I made the kid sit still. I made her sit down in a chair and say, okay, Just sit still and get a feel for what's really going on. What do you really want and need right now? And I determined I want to go slower. I really want to rest. I don't want to keep pushing. I've been out all weekend walking around, doing things socially. Let me just sit and pause. And then I made the challenge to myself. Let me be comfortable with the fact that it will take some time to settle into that discomfort of wanting to act versus wanting to rest. And I had to sit with it because I have to help people do this themselves. So I have to be a person who can be an instrument to show them it's possible for this to happen. And of course, all through my life, I've tried to see how can I get calmer, how can I go slower, and not to equate it with the antiquated ideas of my own, like going slower means you're not doing enough, not pushing forward means you're being lazy, like all the inner stuff. So going slower helps because then I think Lynn mentioned it, the slower pacing helps more arrive. The meditation is that too, going slower, calming down the nervous system and body, breathing deeply. Solutions start to flow in because you've taken yourself out of that fight, flight, freeze mode, which is what we're in when we're that activated or reacting to something. And that's when the solutions come. And so that's what I try to do is self-regulate. And often, if there's a mood or depression, sometimes it's grief that feels like depression, and you're going through a grief wave about missing someone, or missing what you had hoped would happen, or regretting something didn't turn out as it should have in your mind should have, or that it didn't. There's some grief involved, and just sitting with, okay, I'm having a wave of sadness and regret and grief. And I've often also tried to tell myself, give yourself, for that feeling, give yourself the next half hour. You don't have to only stay in that state, but if you want to move through that state, sit with it. I'm sad. I miss my grandmother. That situation reminded me of my grandmother very much. Let that be a feeling. Let it go through you. And it will go because emotions are energy emotion. They will move through. We'll have emotions all our lives and they help us, but they also can be difficult to feel. So those are some of the techniques I use. They're not one size fits all, but that's what I try to do is go slower. That's the first one.
I love I love everyone's answer. I know that one of the things that I don't do a lot of reading, Z. I've talked to you about that, but I listen to so many books. It's like having, I love being able to build that movie in my brain, even though somebody else, it's coming out of someone else's mouth, but I can still put those words into a movie in my own brain. And I can, I can read the experience or live the experience they're reading. I think one of the things that I really enjoy to do when I'm in one of these is be creative. Not You don't have to be like Aviva was saying, but you don't have to be fast. You don't have to be overwhelmed, but be creative is what I do. So, I want to, Aviva, give you the any last words you have before we.
Absolutely. Well, please feel free to reach me with my QR code that I don't see yet, but it will be there.
It will be there.
Z has also formulated and helped me adjust my website for many years already, and it's a very interactive process. So I encourage anyone who needs a website, who wants a dialogue with their web developer, to engage with Z. He's phenomenal through the active listening and mirroring back. And also to say, I'm having an online Zoom class for caregivers coming up in June. It's a 2-session caregiver Zoom sessions through one of the adult schools I work with that can possibly be linked in some way. That it's coming up June on a Tuesday or 2 Mondays in a row from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, designed for caregivers who can't leave their person they're caregiving for. They can be on Zoom, but they can't leave the property or premises. And it's going to talk all about resources, stress related to being a caregiver. So I welcome people to reach out about how to attend that, because it's totally available no matter where you are, because it's on Zoom.
And we will share that information shortly with everyone. Hey, everyone, once again, Lynn, Z, and Aviva, thank you all very much. If you would like to join Aviva and I on this show, please reach out to us. It is, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have your participation. Please put any questions in the comments, like, share, subscribe, help us grow. We will answer your questions on the next episode. If it's an urgent question, I will get back to you even sooner. So, for everyone here, I want to say thank you so very much. Have a wonderful day. And
Thank you,
please,
everybody who participated as a volunteer and a participant. I really appreciate all the help and support and the camaraderie of doing this together today.
absolutely. All right. We will see you all next week with Les. After that, we've got Lynn for Lynn's Day, and then Aviva will be back again. So we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I just don't quite understand what's going on with my internet and why, with a brand new computer, it takes and it does that pause thing. So, yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Aviva first off. Like I said in the intro, I do need to make sure that everybody understands that was a tough situation to try to put that together, and I think she really did a good job. I also want to give a huge shout out to Lynn, star of Lynn's Day, 2 weeks from tonight. Free readings. Be here and put your info in the chat and she will read for you. And of course, the web builder of web builders, the great Mr. Z. I do want to make sure that everybody understands or is aware that our phone number has changed. It's 970-692-1151. 970-692-1151. The email is still the same. Zach, Z-A-K, at communitypayitforward.us. Z-A-K at communitypayitforward.us. Folks, thank you for joining us today on Community Impact. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we need to make sure that we're doing better. We've all got to do better. The infighting, the pettiness, the BS. Man, people leave this earth way too soon. We need to make sure that we've got each other's backs, and we need to make sure that we are here for each other. You can't tell someone I love you when they're gone. You can say it, but they can't hear it. We're still looking for volunteers. I still have a blanket, I still have a free reading, and I still have a book set that we will give away to a donor if they use the QR code in the cover, on the cover. So please hit us up. We still need your support. Thank you very much. My name is Zach Clayton, Community Pay It Forward, the Come Together Compass. I almost said the wrong thing. Come Together Compass and Pact Podcasting Networks. Wishing you adieu, and I will see you next week with Mr. Les Simpson, the Les Simpson Show. I'm looking forward to that. Les is a great guest. He's a great friend and fantastic partner. We're still looking to put together a team of 3 to 5 to learn how our brains can make a difference in your sales.
out alone to show me the way. You wanna hold the heart of Sunset Boulevard. Bring me here, 'cause it's not quite clear to be a part of Sunset Boulevard.